Ever wonder what it'd be like if saving money actually, built wealth?
Hmm.
Like if governments couldn't just print their way out of problems.
Yeah,
Well, that world, believe it or not, it existed.
it did.
And a big part of that was thanks to something called sound money.
That's right, sound money, and in particular gold. I mean, it had a massive impact on the development of human civilization.
For this deep dive, we're going to be looking at the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous,
Okay.
and we're going to, trace this whole history of money, starting with its most basic forms and moving all the way up to the rise and fall of gold.
Right.
And what's so fascinating to me is how this history is still relevant, even in our, digital age.
It is. It is. And it all begins with, a really basic question. Why do we even need money?
Right. Why not just barter? I'll give you this extra goat for, that pottery you made.
Hmm.
Seems simple enough.
It does, but bartering, it runs into some pretty major problems as soon as you try to scale it up. Like, imagine trying to trade a goat for a house.
Right.
You can't exactly divide a house into goat-sized chunks, can you?
No.
So that's the problem of scale.
Okay.
And then there's the issue of time frame.
Okay.
What if you want to trade your goat for something durable, like a wagon,
Mm.
but your goat's, well, not going to stay fresh forever?
Right.
That's a time frame mismatch.
Yeah, I see that.
And then finally, what if the person who wants your goat lives a mile off away?
Location.
Location, exactly.
So money solves these problems by acting as a common medium of exchange. It's the way to, measure value and makes exchanging goods and services much easier.
Exactly. And as economies grow, that common medium of exchange, it becomes absolutely essential for specialization and trade.
Right.
And the Bitcoin Standard has some really fascinating historical examples of this.
Oh, yeah, like the rye stones on the island of Yap.
Yes.
I remember reading about those massive stone wheels
Yeah.
they used as currency.
Yeah, the rice stones. Because they were so difficult to produce, they became a form of hard money.
Okay.
But when someone figured out how to make easier versions, well, let's just say it didn't end well for the island's economy.
It did not.
But
That's a great example of how the technology used to create money, it matters.
it does.
The book also mentions agri-beads in Africa
Yeah.
and seashells in North America. Did those societies, did they run into similar problems?
They did. When those agri-beads, when they were hard to produce, they held their value. But then with the arrival of, more advanced glassmaking, their value plummeted. And the same thing happened with seashells. As people found more efficient ways to harvest them, the supply increased.
Right.
And their value as money went down.
So it seems like a good form of money needs to be scarce, difficult to produce,
Yeah.
just like those rice stones on Yap.
Mm.
Is that why gold emerged as the dominant form of money for so long?
Precisely. Gold has this unique set of physical properties.
Okay.
It's durable, it's scarce, and it's divisible.
Okay.
And those properties make it incredibly well suited to be sound money.
The book mentions some amazing historical examples of gold's impact.
Mhm.
Didn't the Byzantine Empire didn't flourish for over 1,000 years thanks to their solidus gold coin?
That's right, yeah. The solidus was a remarkably stable currency. It facilitated trade, allowed the empire to collect taxes efficiently, and even funded, impressive infrastructure projects.
Wow.
Think about it. The Byzantine Empire, it was around for over a millennium.
Right.
And the solidus played a key role in that stability and longevity.
That's a pretty convincing argument for sound money. And wasn't the Renaissance a period of incredible, artistic and cultural flourishing, also linked to sound coinage,
Yeah,
like the florin?
absolutely. The florin was a gold coin minted in Florence, Italy, and it was highly sought after because of its consistent weight and purity.
Okay.
And it allowed merchants and bankers to, trade with confidence across long distances. And it's no coincidence that during this time of sound money, we see the rise of these powerful trading cities,
Right.
like Florence, Venice, and Genoa, which in turn fueled the artistic and intellectual explosion of the Renaissance.
It's amazing to see how closely sound money is linked to the rise and fall of civilizations.
It is.
Makes you wonder what happened. Why did we move away from something that seemed to work so well for so long?
That's a question a lot of people are asking. And it brings us to a significant turning point in monetary history, the decline of the gold standard. So in the early 20th century, we saw this major shift in the way money was managed.
Okay.
Governments and central banks started to exert more and more control over the money supply,
Hmm.
which eventually led to the demise of the gold standard
Right.
and the rise of what we call fiat currency.
And by fiat currency, you mean money that isn't backed by anything tangible.
Exactly.
Like its value is based solely on the government,
Yeah.
saying it has value.
Yeah, exactly. With fiat currency governments, they have this ability to print as much money as they want.
Right.
And as we've seen throughout history, when the supply of money increases without a corresponding increase in, the supply of goods and services,
Yeah.
it leads to inflation.
Right. Inflation, that thing that makes our savings worth less over time.
Exactly.
Not good.
Yeah,
The Bitcoin standard, it really emphasizes like the dangers of fiat money.
it does.
It doesn't just mention inflation, but also government manipulation and the erosion of, people's savings. Those are pretty serious consequences.
They are. And what's even more concerning is that we're seeing the effects of this fiat experiment play out in real time in our economy today.
Right.
We have massive government debt,
Yeah.
declining savings rates,
Mm.
and the emergence of what some economists call zombie industries.
Zombie industries.
Yeah, these are companies that can only survive because of these artificially low interest rates
Okay.
and easy money.
So basically companies that wouldn't survive in a free market with sound money.
Precisely, yeah. They're being propped up by a system that incentivizes short-term thinking
Right.
and risky behavior.
It's fascinating how something as seemingly abstract as the type of money we use can have such a ripple effect
It does.
on our entire economy and even our personal behavior. This brings to mind the concept of time preference,
Yeah.
which the Bitcoin standard talks about.
Hmm.
Didn't it say that sound money, like gold, encourages a lower time preference?
That's right. When people hold money that they know will retain its value over time, they're more inclined to, save,
Okay.
invest for the future. Sound money promotes a long-term outlook.
So people are less likely to just spend every dollar they earn. They're more likely to delay gratification if they believe their money will be worth something tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the power of a low time preference.
Mm.
It leads to, higher savings rates, more investment in productive enterprises, and even stronger family structures.
Wow.
Because, individuals are thinking about the future, not just the present.
Whereas with fiat money, which constantly loses its value due to inflation, it encourages people to spend now rather than save. I guess you could say it fosters a higher time preference.
Precisely. And this shift in time preference, it has had profound societal consequences.
Right.
We see it in, declining savings rates, the rise in consumer debt,
Wow.
and even the breakdown of families as people become more focused on, immediate gratification.
So we've talked about the problems with fiat money. What about potential solutions? That's where Bitcoin enters the picture, right? Could it be a new form of sound money for the digital age?
That's a question a lot of people are asking.
Yeah.
Let's delve into that. What
Oh.
what exactly is Bitcoin and how does it work?
To be honest, I'm still a little fuzzy on the details.
Yep.
Can you give us a refresher?
Certainly. In essence, Bitcoin is a decentralized digital currency,
Okay.
which means it's not controlled by any government, bank, or institution.
Okay.
It's based on this revolutionary technology called blockchain.
Blockchain being that distributed ledger that keeps track of all Bitcoin transactions.
Yes, you could think of it as this giant public record-keeping system.
Okay.
Every transaction is recorded on this blockchain.
Yeah.
And this record is distributed across this vast network of computers all over the world.
Okay.
This makes it incredibly secure and transparent.
So there's no single point of failure or control.
Right.
That's a pretty big departure from the way, traditional financial systems work.
Absolutely. And it's one of the key features that makes Bitcoin so appealing. It cuts out the middleman, the banks, payment processors, governments
Yeah.
that traditionally control the flow of money.
So that sounds great in theory, but how does it work in practice? How do you actually send and receive Bitcoin?
Think of it like email for money.
Okay.
Every user has a Bitcoin wallet with a unique address, kind of like an email address.
Okay.
And you can send and receive Bitcoin to and from these addresses using a simple software interface.
And these transactions are recorded on the blockchain.
Yes. Each transaction is broadcast to the entire network
Okay.
and verified by a process called mining.
Mining. What is mining exactly?
Yeah.
I've heard the term, but I'm not sure I fully understand it.
So miners are essentially the bookkeepers of this Bitcoin network.
Okay.
They use specialized computer hardware to solve complex mathematical problems.
Okay.
The first miner to solve the problem, they get to add the next block of transactions to the blockchain and is rewarded with newly created Bitcoin.
So it's a kind of competition.
Exactly.
Right.
And this competition, it's what makes Bitcoin so secure.
Yeah.
To tamper with the blockchain, you need to control more than 50% of the network's computing power, which is practically impossible given how decentralized and globally distributed it is.
That does sound pretty secure, but let's get back to this idea of Bitcoin as sound money.
Okay.
It's digital, right?
Yeah.
How can something digital be scarce, like gold? Can't you just, copy and paste it infinitely?
That's a common misconception. Bitcoin's code is designed to have a limited and predictable supply.
Okay.
There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin.
Okay.
And the rate at which new Bitcoin are created is gradually decreasing over time. This built-in scarcity is one of the key features that makes Bitcoin comparable to gold.
So you're saying that even though Bitcoin is digital, it shares some fundamental properties with gold.
Yes.
It's scarce, it's durable, in the sense that it can't be destroyed, and it's divisible.
Precisely. It's often referred to as digital gold for this very reason.
Right.
And like gold, it's inherently deflationary. Okay.
Meaning its purchasing power tends to, increase over time.
Wait, deflationary?
Yeah.
Isn't that a bad thing?
Well,
we always hear that inflation is good for the economy.
That's a narrative often pushed by those who benefit from the current fiat system. In reality, deflation, a gradual decrease in the general price level, can be very good for savers and long-term investors. It means your money actually gains purchasing power over time.
So in a world where Bitcoin is the dominant form of money, your savings would actually be worth more over time.
That's the idea. Bitcoin encourages saving and a lower time preference, much like gold did in the past.
Right.
It provides this secure store of value that isn't subject to the whims of, governments or central banks.
That definitely has its appeal. But if Bitcoin's so great, why isn't everyone using it? What are the barriers to mass adoption? It seems like there's a lot of potential, but it's still a relatively new technology.
It is. Not everyone is comfortable with the idea of digital currencies, especially with all the news about, scams and hacks.
Right.
The Bitcoin Standard mentions that, mainstream adoption takes time. But I'm curious what you see as the biggest hurdles.
You're right. It does take time for people to understand and trust these new technologies, especially when it comes to something as fundamental as money.
Right.
There are definitely challenges related to user friendliness. Not everyone is tech savvy enough to manage their own Bitcoin wallets,
right,
or understand the intricacies of the blockchain.
So there's a learning curve that might be intimidating to some.
Exactly.
What about education? Do we need more businesses to accept Bitcoin for it to become truly mainstream?
Absolutely. The more places you can spend Bitcoin, the more useful it becomes.
Right.
And we're seeing progress on that front with more and more companies, both online and offline, starting to accept, Bitcoin payments.
The book even mentions that some central banks are holding on to gold despite claiming it's no longer relevant.
Right.
It seems like there's a disconnect between what they're saying and what they're actually doing. Do you think there's a similar disconnect when it comes to governments and Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Like, they might say it's not a threat, but behind the scenes, they're trying to figure out how to control it.
It's a possibility. We're already seeing governments and regulators around the world grappling with, how to handle Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Right.
Some see it as a threat to their control over the monetary system.
Right.
While others are trying to find ways to regulate and co-opt it.
Do you think they'll be successful in controlling it? Or is Bitcoin, by its very nature, kind of resistant to that kind of control?
It's a tough question to answer. Bitcoin is designed to be decentralized and censorship resistant. It's not controlled by any single entity, which makes it, difficult, if not impossible, for any government to shut it down completely.
So it's a bit of a tug of war between the old system and the new.
You could say that, but regardless of who wins this tug of war,
right,
The emergence of Bitcoin has already had a profound impact.
Yep.
It's sparked this global conversation about the nature of money,
Right.
the role of government, and the possibilities of, decentralized systems.
It seems like even if Bitcoin doesn't become the dominant form of money,
Hmm.
the technology behind it, blockchain, is still incredibly valuable.
Yes.
I've heard people compare it to the internet in terms of its potential to disrupt industries.
It's a valid comparison. Just like the internet transformed the way we communicate and share information,
Right.
blockchain has the potential to revolutionize the way we transact and manage value. It's
Hmm.
it's already being explored for everything from supply chain management to secure voting systems.
So it sounds like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with blockchain.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an exciting time to be watching this space evolve.
Yeah.
We don't we know exactly what the future holds, but one thing is certain.
Mm.
Bitcoin and blockchain, they've introduced this new paradigm,
Mm.
and they're forcing us to rethink some of our most fundamental assumptions about, money, finance, and even governance.
Wow. This deep dive has been eye-opening. I
Mhm.
I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of the history of money and its impact on our world.
Yeah.
It's also made me think a lot about the future
Yeah.
and the kind of financial system we're creating.
It's important to think about those things.
It is. For anyone listening who wants to learn more, the Bitcoin Standard is definitely worth a read. I'd also encourage you to research the history of your own currency and think critically about the role of money in your life. Ask yourself, what kind of money do I want to use? And
Yeah.
what kind of financial future do I want to be a part of?
Yeah.
Those are questions we all need to be asking ourselves as we navigate this evolving landscape of money and technology.
I couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of sound money.